very much their experience of knowing, okay, this works and this doesn't work. Let's push this button, this notification at this time, and push that notification later. And of course, they had some elements and experience behind them. So that's what you need to build. You need to build the experience. So, there's no better way other than getting started.
Welcome to the 50th episode of Stars and Startups podcast with me, Rahul of Junglee. Firstly, thank you for supporting the podcast. A huge shout out to everyone who wrote in and egged me on to do this show. Very, very grateful. And a bigger thank you to my guests who graciously came onto the podcast and shared their lives, about their startups and what they're doing in the Indian startup ecosystem. On this special episode, I chat with a friend of mine and mentor, Rahul Bhardwaj, the CEO of Junglee Games. The episode is full of interesting nuggets about gaming, biohacking, and Naval Ravikant. Let's get started with episode 50. If you're a first-time listener, don't forget to hit subscribe. Hey Rahul, welcome to the show. How are you doing? It looks like a nice sunny day in Bangalore.
It is. And I think, I hope we have like many more days like this. We'll see. Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's sunny. Good day. It is a good day.
Also, I'm so glad to have you on the program. It's been a while. You've been following the show since day one, which is in May. So finally, I'm glad I was able to convince you to come on the chat show. So, thank you for making it.
Yeah, no problem. This is an exclusive just for you. I've not done this with anyone, just so you know.
Rahul, it's such a great time for gaming companies.
It's easiest way that it's helped anyone and any business that's purely digital is like by virtue of people being home, they access your product, whatever it could be, in this case, gaming, right? A little bit more. And gaming just lends itself to solving or helping you during these times, in three ways. Number one, we are entertaining, right? So when people are not feeling well and they feel like you want to kill a little time or enjoy a little bit, considering the pandemic that's going on, they play games, right? Like that's one thing they could do. They can watch TV or whatever it is, but they play games. So we've seen a rise with that. Number two, people are looking for an outlet as well, something different. Everyone's used to watching shows, and I mean, watching movies and shows and enjoying entertainment isn't going to change. But gaming just has become a little more popular over the years, right? We kind of started the company, my CEO, Ankush, and me, of course, as COO, started the company like almost 8 years ago, sorry. And that time gaming was nowhere near the where it is today in the country, right? So with the popularity of gaming, people are, again, they're looking to engage that more. Now, as I said, just by virtue of being home, you're playing it more, and sort of to be entertained, you're playing it more, and to sort of discover what's out there in terms of technology and experiencing new technologies, you're again playing more. So the pandemic, I think it's unfortunate it's on, but it has really helped push people towards our products. And we've been able to sort of, give them an outlet for de-stressing, entertaining, and even sort of building, a sort of aspect or an idea around where gaming is and how gaming works, right? Like this is the time people are using to discover new things. So they're like, why don't we try it? So we've seen a lot of pickup, a lot of new users during this time.
So a lot of these are casual gamers, right? And that basically means a lot more people have discovered games and they're taking the mind off other things using mobile games. Any numbers on trends like pre-COVID, post-COVID kind of levels? What is the new normal for gaming? Because you've seen it, right? You've seen if 2012 is when you enter the market to launch the products. That's also early days of Android and iOS, right? Very few people had. So you've kind of also probably seen growth along with, mobile phones taking off. What has kind of been the trend in the last 8 years?
So
pre and post COVID.
Sure. I'll come to pre and post COVID. Let's start with 2012. Facebook was actually very popular, and many people may not even remember this time, but Facebook and web-based gaming was very, very popular. No one looked at mobile, and we ourselves, we were primarily a web and a Facebook-based gaming company at the time in 2012 when we started. That was our entire focus. And I have seen, or we, all of us who kind of did this together, have seen mobile just take off. 2014, 2015, 2016 were the years Google One, Micromax, like we were all there, right? All the Chinese manufacturers, right? Xiaomi and then eventually Vivo and Oppo and all of them came. We saw them push cheaper handsets, more powerful handsets into the market, and people who couldn't afford a computer, which was still like 50, 60, 70K and lakhs if you're looking at a MacBook, adopt the mobile format, which is where then we had to get into mobile gaming also. And it's popular abroad as well anyways. It just took time to come to India, but we saw that phase. So that time the trend was mobile. And today, the trend is more mobile right now. And pre-COVID, it's still like everyone's playing games on their mobile phones. Of course, games like PUBG and even back in the day, there was a lot about Candy Crush, right? Like sort of globally popular games had a lot to do with pushing people towards gaming more and more in India. Back then, we wouldn't see more than 10, 20 million users in a year. Today, we are seeing hundreds of millions of users across all different types of games in the country. So the trends have completely changed, right? Obviously, but they're all on the up. Like in the short sort of response, they're all up. You have to be mobile first. That's where people consume games. Data is no longer an issue. That was another trend. It was very expensive in 2012. You remember those dongles, right? We used to run around with a 3 Mbps or sometimes a 30 Mbps dongle and 2,000 rupees and stick it, right? And go sit somewhere or sit somewhere else. All that's changed, right? Like now data is so cheap. Everyone's on a hotspot. Everyone can afford it. Everyone's happy about it. And so data will get cheaper. Mobile consumption of products will be higher, and gaming will just take off. I think pre-COVID, people who had any doubts about whether to do something or not now have more time to try it. Like I said, so we are seeing more and more people jump on this and enjoy gaming. Now, I would go a little bit further out and tell you, I truly do believe augmented reality, and more importantly, virtual reality will be the future of consumption. I don't see people playing games on their mobile phones all the time. There's a lot of ergonomic, distastefulness that lends itself to consuming a game like this on your hands, with your hands and on the phone all the time. Screen small, hands aren't right. Like mobile phones were not made to play games, right? We know this, right? And you have to either go with accessories. Like I've seen all kinds of accessories pop up now, right? Like there's stands where you can mount your phone and go with a gamepad that Bluetooth connects to the phone. There are triggers that you attach to your phone and people use that. So that's where people are kind of going. But I truly believe in the future, you're going to put on a headset, maybe glasses, and then enjoy the game through that format. Now, what's going to happen for that to take off is exactly what happened for mobile to take off. Number one, cheaper hardware. Like that gets pushed into the market. Number two, data connection improvements, right? That gets pushed into the market. And finally, number three, games itself that are built on those platforms becoming popular, so people buy it for the games, right? And I know people were improving their phones to play PUBG, and that was a big trend. And prior to PUBG, in the early years when you couldn't have a computer, you got a phone, so you could play whatever game else you wanted. Otherwise, you were just using it for shopping online or getting on Facebook or WhatsApp and so on.
Are you saying people are buying more premium devices so that they can play better PUBG? Is that the trend that you've seen?
Yeah, I have seen this firsthand amongst both friends, cousins, kids, whatever it is. That once you lose to someone and it's because you didn't fire fast enough, or your phone hung, or the battery died, the immediate next ask is, I need a better phone, right? I need just it's the same sort of feeling when you upgrade your console. And you go from an old Xbox to a new Xbox. The drivers are the youth, right? The people who actually consume games as a normal activity. It's very natural to them because they're born into this industry. So that's the last trend I want to hit on. Is I think I'll make a couple of very wild predictions. Hopefully people watch this 10 years from now and I'm right. But if I'm wrong, I'll still go viral for being wrong. But the point is, I think the youth are going to be the next generation of athletes, and they're all going to be esports athletes, because for them to pick up games athletically or from home to begin with is much easier than trying to get equipment and get out there in today's sort of a pandemic level situation. So they're learning to play at home and play competitively in games, and these things are becoming, as you are sort of somewhat aware about the esports industry, is becoming a place of athletic competition that drives both, I would say, prize money to them, so they see value in trying to do this, and it's something they naturally consume. I keep going back to this part, which is today's youth just wakes up in the world today and sees gaming as just a natural thing that they do, right? You should have a profile in your gaming, sort of center. You have friends who are playing the same games, and so you all get together and play these games online, and you're not just outside playing cricket or football all the time. So esports is a huge trend which will drive this adoption even further. And I do see in the future, not just, sort of virtual reality being a way of consuming these games, not mobile, but I see esports taking over a lot of different sports, which cannot keep up with the youth today who want to play games rather than, and play games athletically rather than play the sport athletically. I'm not saying football will die or cricket will die. Those games are, I think immortal for very good reasons. But I do think, a lot of other games that don't have that much deeper following will be replaced by gaming, and that time will be replaced by gaming overall, right? You could maybe see Ludo as a board game go completely away and only be consumed as a mobile game format, for example, because it's just so popular on devices and so easily playable amongst people from different parts. And you all don't have to get together, right, and play with the board at the same time. So I think esports is a big deal, and kind of a big trend where this is all headed also.
No, I think it's a super exciting time for the world in general, and all the new trends that are coming up, not just because of the access to mobile phones and internet connections, but also where people's mindsets are, right? Where, you're going less outside, you're staying in more, and then there's a lot more that they're doing, though you're still expanding your mind, not just with games. I remember a time when, we had consoles, right? You had the Xbox, you had the Nintendos. I loved my, Super Mario on my Game Boy, right? And this was what was the trend. And these companies made money, selling consoles and selling games, right? They had a full-fledged studio that would make the game. So not only did they have to perfect creating a hardware, which is a console, and then ensure it is being up to date and being a lot more, high standard. And they also were able to create these phenomenal, visually amazing games that could excite people to buy more and more. And each of those, games would then contribute to more revenues for the company, right? So a typical, sell a console, sell games was, the way forward. Then you had the switch to, where we're seeing now, say Clash of Clans, Angry Birds, you have Candy Crush, right? They make money serving ads and other things, apart from all the game, the purchases you're making. How have you seen this evolve, and where do you see this going, and where does a gaming company actually make money? Is it some of these casual games, or are there other things that the mass market doesn't see, where there's a lot more action happening?
Sure. I think there are a lot of ways to a lot of business models that are available in gaming. If you go by the most popular games, they're popular also partially because they're free, right, to play. So PUBG is popular because it costs nothing to get started. And eventually, if you want to play more, you buy something in the game. It's called in-app. The whole concept's called in-app purchase or in-game purchase to enjoy the game further, right? It's not new or novel. It's been around for almost a decade plus. But the point is, it works. Like, this business model works the best. So you avoid ads, you avoid diluting the person's experience, and you also avoid a high barrier to entry, so you're not very expensive to play. And a lot of it, now we're talking business, a lot of it has to do with your margins, right? You spend a lot of money developing something popular like PUBG, but you don't spend, I would say, as much as if you're developing a console game with a lot of franchise level elements, right? Console games are very, long-term, heavy investment, high amounts of capital, sort of put in almost like a movie-esque fashion. Developing something that you would want to see a part 2, part 3, part 5 of more consistently over time, because you also know that in consoles, you have a one-time purchase with the game itself. But that also, by the way, I just want to point out, is now changing, right? Now consoles are being delivered with the capacity to download. It's all available now, like whether it's Google Stadia or it's even prior to that now Xbox and PlayStation. You can stream your content, and so they're going to be able to deliver now more easily free content and allow you to put in-app purchases to go to the next level or buy the next item. And so all of gaming is moving in that direction, right? All of gaming is moving towards the in-app sort of business model, in-app purchase, in-app sort of consumption model, and that's where everyone should focus. Because if you try to charge someone something, there's always going to be a question of why. And even the consoles, I don't know if you're aware, but I mean, if you're in the gaming industry, the consoles sell at a loss. They don't necessarily sell, depending on when they're selling and who they're selling from and what price. But generally, the idea is let's get the console in the hands of everyone as much as possible. I mean, it can't be free at the moment. It might just one day be that Microsoft wakes up and says, let's give an Xbox to everyone in the world. We can afford it, or something of that sort. I won't get into like the calculation, but the point is, they sell, at times at a loss in order for you to get into the game, right? So a lot of it has to do with like getting you in the game, and then the mechanics of a game are built to give you feedback and make you feel good. So you to play more end up being someone oriented to do in-app purchases, right? I know people who wouldn't spend money on a new shoe if their shoe wasn't just in the right order, and they needed new shoes, but then they've gone ahead and made purchases in game for a game, right? For chips or tokens and stuff. So gaming inherently, like that hook, if you can build that into your game, your business model is right. So to answer your question, that's the business model. That's where you should go. That's how you should build. It works for everyone, from a startup to an established company. Everyone can offer something for free to begin with, and if people like it and you build a hook so you like it, you eventually end up paying for it. So now, I mean, people are just moving away from, it's a given, they're just moving away from paying for anything. So trying to charge people in the beginning is very difficult. You can have premium content, like Apple or anyone else, that you can charge for the fact that, look, we're really, really good quality, high quality, but that's for a different, echelon in the whole pyramid of, the user base. The larger market easiest to tackle with a in-app purchase free, what we call, almost even sometimes a freemium model. Ads don't work as much, right? Again, that's the advice. Like, you can run ads, you can make money off ads, but ads don't work to build depth. You can't have a game that consistently just is purely running on ads. You
it's
have
annoying.
to, in order to, yeah, of course, right? So you wouldn't play in enough, right? The mature gamers reach a stage where they're just like, I will pay to get the ad out, right? I will pay to not see any ads. Like, let's move on from here. So you don't want to dilute the experience with ads. So there's nothing wrong with ads. It's just ads is like, that premium spot, right? Like, you run your game for free and you just run off ads. But then the content and the depth that you can provide isn't as much, because you don't make as much money off ads. You want a sustainable model where people are hooked, enough mechanics in the game where they pay on stage to stage. And there's plenty of material out there that talks about how successful games have built feedback loops in their games to get people to pay at the right time. A lot of this, I'll say the last piece, a lot of this has to do with neuroscience. The better gaming companies, including us at Junglee Games, study neurology and the elements of how your brain reacts when you're playing parts of the game, and we tweak them so that you are enjoying more enough to pay us to enjoy further. And so neuroscience and honestly, the larger companies like Electronic Arts and so on, they actually have PhDs and neuroscientists on staff who notice the feedback loops in the games and tweak them, right? A small element of that, for example, is when do you lose and when do you win? And when you lose, what message should you be shown versus when you win, what message should be shown? So if you lose, should you be shown completely game over and you restart from the beginning? Or are you shown like 10 seconds ago so you get a chance to restart from where you were? Like, a lot of that has to do with, again, the feedback loop that they're building and the choices that they make. And these lend themselves to games that become more enjoyable over time. So this neuroscience has a lot to do with the feedback loops, which leads back into in-app purchase, which leads back into the sort of business model that everyone should pick up overall.
My mind is blown, right? Because building a gaming company or a game doesn't seem to be all fun and games, right? There's a lot of hard science that goes into it, right from the creation of it, and how does everything flow together, and you're talking about neuroscience and how you actually consume it as a gamer, but you actually don't know what kind of people are behind it. And I would say the same thing for Facebook and other companies too, right? Because they too are figuring out when to send you a notification, and
Yeah,
that too. And I think there's a little bit of similarity, but obviously they're very different from each other.
there is. So I just want to say that look, this doesn't mean if you don't know neuroscience, don't build a game, right? You just go out and build a game. If you're a developer, a designer, an artist, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and build a game. These are elements to know about that come later, right? Once you've sort of seen your game go live and elements of success are coming in, you want to build on top of that success. So the first, a company that built any version of any game when they were just a small studio, like you could take the Supercell guys, right? They don't have neuroscientists on staff when they got out their first version or their second
Sure.
version, right? Very much their experience of knowing, okay, this works and this doesn't work, let's push this button, this notification at this time, and push that notification later. And of course they had some elements and experience behind them. So that's what you need to build. You need to build the experience. So there's no better way other than getting started.
Our honorable prime minister a few weeks back said India should focus on developing games in India, to and get inspired by the culture and folk tales to create games. And that's a quote that I'm just reading. And he's talking about how India can do that. And he's saying, hey, go build a game, because, and I think this was just after banning PUBG and a few Chinese apps that Indians obviously love. And this was his message to the people. So that also has, created this need, or at least put into the public conscience that they should go and build games, right? What's your take on this? And from what you're saying, you can obviously start small and build, but obviously it requires a lot more in terms of investment, time, thought to build something that you can't, be sitting in your dorm room and create like a mind-blowing game. Or can you? Or do you have all the tools today to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the answer is you have the tools today to build a mind-blowing game from anywhere, honestly. In fact, okay, so let's take like 2 steps back. Gaming as a base leads into value of a lot of verticals. For example, gaming leads into education. You will learn better if it's a game. It's proven. Gamification is the quote unquote word and term applied, right? That means in your learning cycle you have gaming loops. And when I say feedback loops, I just want to define this for listeners who maybe not understand what I'm trying to say. It's simple. When you do something, you see something happen. That's a loop, right? So you do something again to see something else happen. Now, doing something can be like picking up an object in the game. Receiving a response is that object gives you 10 points. So you're like, okay, good. Every time I pick up an object, I get 10 points. Now my goal is I can see a progress bar. My goal is to get to 100 points in the fastest time. Okay, let's quickly pick up some objects, and the points are going up. That's gamification, right? Like they've gamified it with the points and the progress bar. If you pick up an object and there are no points, you don't know why you're doing this, and you just do it for the sake of it, right? So now think of this at your home. If you've got clothes lying around everywhere, or let's say laundry, like it's one of my favorite things to not do. And every time I picked up a piece of cloth out of the washing machine and I folded or dried it, I got 10 points. And so I saw my progress bar go up and my level go up. I'll do more of it. Believe me, like that dopamine that hits you in the mind on gamification really helps. So now you can apply this in education. Kids will study better. They'll learn better, right? Now, the other part that gaming works is in training, right? It's not unknown that like flight simulators is how pilots train. That's a game. That was eventually a game. That was like Microsoft Flight Simulator built out. So it's not just flight simulator. And, the army uses it. The surgeons or hospitals use it. Like to an extent, they all have some version of a game that's simulating their environment and getting them. And they call it a game. It's not really a game. It's a simulation, right? But the reality is it's a game. If you put some scores and points to it, it's a game. Then you have a level, you have points, you have feedback loops. But otherwise, simulators are game level based simulations that allow you to educate or train yourself. So there's training, there's education. Finally, there's just the brain development, right? Your dexterity of hand-eye coordination, you're training that, and eventually your brain is developing new ways of learning how to solve problems, right? Whether it's a puzzle game, or a map game or a treasure game. There's all these elements you're picking up on in order to help you in real life. So gaming as a base is really strong, leading into a lot of verticals, which is why I think the government is pushing this, and they should. Gaming is a natural part of a lot of curriculums abroad, whether you're in the US, in Israel, or some other countries. You will see even the Russian government, for example, was recently announced that esports and gaming is to be an integral offering at the school level. So let's get kids into this. Finally, even if you're learning programming, you learn programming in a lot of courses. I believe also, shout out hashtag White Hat Junior and all the ads we see all the time, is teaching you how to make a game, right? It's not starting by saying, okay, hi, you're a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old. Let's make a ledger, an accounting software, right? As to teach you programming.
They don't. The kid will fall asleep. The kid will fall asleep.
Yeah, so say like, let's start by making ping pong, or let's start by making a simple 2D runner, right? Where you just go up and so this goes further. So what I'm trying to say is, look, the tools are totally available. Anyone can make games. Now, the quality, of course, depends on the amount of investment. And so obviously, as we spoke about this earlier, console games take a lot of money and time because their quality and what they can render and deliver with the horsepower is something beautiful that they want to get you immersed into. But if you just use mobile graphics as a base, you can easily build a game that looks good. And I think we know enough success stories of people who have come out of little to no experience but built a game that's become really popular. And you can there's no formula. You just have to build and put it out there and see what people say, and that will help you build on this further. So if you've got an idea, you should go and try it because the tools are available.
No, that's super insightful, Rahul. In the all the games that Junglee has in its kind of repertoire, right? I think there are a few games that are really, really popular in India, and that involves some familiarity, right? And you're talking about cricket, you're talking about rummy, you're talking about maybe poker. That's still not too Indian, but the card games have taken off massively. Is there any insight from there in terms of how people are adopting something that's familiar but now it's digital, so you don't actually have to be together in a single place, or you can play with anybody because you think you're good at it and that you want to play more of that and get better at it. Is there some correlation there, and how, as a gaming studio, how do you guys look at it, and how did you pick some of these games?
Sure. So for us, it was always barrier to entry, right? If we built a game, how easy is it for someone to get started? Now, if you have a brand new game that someone's not played before, then you understand that there is some, resistance to learning the new mechanics, no matter how good the game is. And the number of early adopters who play these games and derive value from this now is growing. Back in 2012, it was very little. Are very small. What you need, like for any product, what you need is early adopters who love using the product, tell other people, and no matter how the product looks or feels, other people will use it because the early adopters tell them. Okay, so let's talk about WhatsApp. Before WhatsApp, there were messengers available, but not everyone was on any type of particular messenger. It's not like WhatsApp de-seated a most popular messenger in India. What happened was there were early adopters who used WhatsApp, started telling other people, like, I'm on WhatsApp, you should get on because I can message you quickly. And let me show you how to do this. Okay, look, go over here, touch my name, click on this, and there you're good to go, right? And those people started telling other people, and those people started telling other people. Eventually, it got popular enough that everyone just adopted it because it became a normal thing. So that's kind of, a basic cycle of early adopters. And then you have crossing the chasm. It's a concept around getting, going from early adopters to, of course, natural, you hit the critical mass and you go into natural adoption. So gaming in 2012 was in the early adopter stage. And an easy way to get everyone on board was to produce a game that everyone was familiar with. So we went with Rummy for two reasons. Number one, of course, familiarity with the game, right? Easy to do. Number two, the legality behind it being a skill game. So we could run it for real money, which built up on the natural enjoyment where people were playing this offline exactly like that. Because as long as you're a skill game, you can play it for real money competitively. So it's really an esport. Esports are nothing but just, the ability to play games for competitive prizes. As long as they're skill games, then it makes sense. Like you could play football or cricket for competitive prizes. So you can play a game as well, which has a huge element of skill. Whether it's Rummy or PUBG, it's all skill based. So going back to what I'm saying, we started with that. Then we toyed with ideas of, and not just us, everyone's toyed with ideas of, okay, now we see early adopters. They've gone through the familiar games. They're hooked to, ability to play games. They understand all the basics, which is, here's how I use my phone. Here's the data connection. This is what I need to play a game, any game, and all that. Now let's try some new concepts. And honestly, the new concepts haven't taken off till date. And now slowly, again, thanks to PUBG over time, people have gotten used to action games.
Right.
So if you produce action games, the individuals, again, the youth were the majority of people who played this, and they will now be able to adopt another action game more easily and even furthermore, into that concept. But new concepts are harder for those reasons, as I'm telling you, right? The early adopters need some level of familiarity in order to build up to that. So for a business, you want to reduce that time, so you pick the game that's easiest to understand and play. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try new concepts, only means the time where new concepts are accepted is still yet to come. And the new concept exception, by the way, is super high in the West, because there, I think there have been decades of gaming, right, starting from Atari. You think about 1980s when the first Atari came out, and you're playing Pong. People don't know how to use a joystick. They don't know how the buttons work. But they learned it, right? They learned it. And then everything's been based on that, right? They went from Atari to Nintendo with the same concept of Super Mario jumping up and down with the same two button, but now the stick became actually a pad, even though they still called it a joystick for the longest time before they got to like, okay, let's call it a pad, to where the Xbox is. So you see the evolution of adoption, and the familiarity building into your inception into new concepts. But India is far from that right now, which is really exciting, because that means if you have a wild thought, you should try it. You never know if yours is going to be the next thing that gets to be taken up as a new concept that people enter into. But as a business to sustain, mostly people are playing it safe and picking familiar games for the reasons I told you, right? Easiest to kind of get started, and then you build into that further.
There's just so many questions I have on gaming and Junglee and all of that. But I'm going to defer that maybe to later in the podcast if it's possible, or we'll have to do a completely new episode. I found out that Naval Ravikant is an advisor on the Junglee board. Did you spend much time with him at all in the early days?
We've been blessed to have his insights and his advice and his all his thoughts, directing the decisions we're making. But complete and full credit to Ankush, of course, the CEO, who's bridged that relationship. It's not me; I take no credit for it.
He's obviously known as a philosopher, monk of startups. Or he has all kinds of names, and he obviously gives all these nuggets of wisdom on Twitter. But I think the question was, have you picked up anything from him that has helped you in the journey of building Junglee? Maybe personally as well, because he puts out a lot of things, and I just wanted to see if you related to some of the things that he said.
Yeah. I think I'm going to talk about everything public. There are parts that were picked up by me personally, and even I think the company, to run the way we do. So there's a business side of it, and then there's the personal side of it, right? Of how you sort of live your life. If I'm not going to get deeper into it, because I think we all have access, like I said, to his short list of hey, you're doing this and this and this. But I think from the business aspect of it, the differentiation between creating wealth and earning money or revenue is a very core concept of understanding that you need to have multiple assets. Even in a business, you have to have multiple products and multiple capabilities and provide value, right? And so even the concept of what is value? Like, how do you provide value to someone so they give you money, right? That entire structure that he gets into around you've got to find that skill set that you're not just great at or amazing at, but make it the core value you're providing to people consistently. And as long as you're providing value, you let that generate the interaction, and it further goes into you making money and revenue, right? Because a lot of people have an approach to business is very straightforward. Like, I want to make money, right? And that's the wrong place to start. Like, if you want to make money, you want to build something that's of value. And it's not just, even him who says that. A lot of greats who've built value themselves understand that. On the personal side, it's a lot of utilization of meditation, a lot of utilization and understanding of the world as a whole, to understand your sort of place in it, and feel calmer and nicer and better about how things are going, whether they're bad or good or great or worse. Just a more deeper appreciation of the present moment. And then understand that, like, you have no control of the future and you have no control of the past. It's more important for you to both, even in the business and life, enjoy what you have now, because we don't know if you're going to hit by a meteor tomorrow, or you don't know if you're going to be happier or worse tomorrow, right? So rather than cycles spent on that, let's spend the cycles on now. So that basic philosophy is like how we've always carried ourselves. So our value is like lead with love. At Junglee Games, lead with love is the value number one, because we understand, like, that's the point, right? It's right now I could be angry with you, or I could have a more loving approach to the situation that we need to talk about in business. I'll choose love because I don't know tomorrow what's going to happen, or what's going to happen in an hour, right? And so there's better, if I have a choice between being positive and negative right now, let's be positive. So lead with love is a big, huge value that we go by. And from a business side, again, we have the data. We're obsessed with data as a value in the company. That comes from that same concept that he talks about also, right? Like, you got to know the basics and the numbers to drive value further. It's kind of how AngelList works even in the investment space, right? You have to know the data and the numbers in order to make the right investment. So I think he's helped us both personally and professionally. But those two core concepts, whether it's being in the moment, or it's also like understanding in the business, like how do you generate value, have come through a lot of his, like I say, public teachings also.
I discovered Naval very late. I wish I knew of him and his tweets much before. And well, never. I mean, better late than never, right? So I think there is obviously that.
He would say that when you discovered him is the right time when you were supposed to discover him, right? Like, it's right. It's just all in the flow of the moment. And then he'd request you to meditate to get that far. I think, right? I can't judge. I can only tell you it's all good teachings overall.
No, fantastic. You and I have had some very interesting discussions about a topic, that was quite popular in the Valley a few years ago, which is biohacking,
Sure.
and then into intermittent fasting and whatnot. What's been your philosophy? Because you shared some nuggets, which I was like super. You had done all the research and you'd concised it, and you're like, hey, this is what I do, which works for me. And and you said, hey, this is something that you're free to use or don't use, but this is what I do. If you want to condense all the things that I do right now based on my learning, viewing, watching, reading, this is what it is. How do you get here? And maybe there are some things you can share with the audience.
Yeah. I mean, I think how do you get there is very personal. Each of us have a different drive. My drive is to extract. I'm going to be using this word a lot during this conversation. Extract maximum value from every moment.
Actually, we may want to talk a little bit about biohacking and what it is, if they've never come across this term.
Okay. All right. Like, it's a generic term that simply means you find ways around, you hack your own biology or the bioenvironment around you. And the word hack is a way of saying you put in a process or a product or a solution, like something that enhances your experience and your capabilities, right? So this is a very scientific, you asked for a definition, there's a very scientific definition, right?
All right. Enhance. The definition that I think I enjoy, and it's not necessarily a definition, is that it makes you a high functioning human to be better at the things that you're doing at the moment, and that's by changing some aspects of food, action, environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I ascribe to that same meaning as well. And so I haven't, like, I just want to let listeners know, this doesn't mean you hack your body means that you put something in there, because there are aspects of that too, like people who've gone that far, right? Like implanted themselves and taken a lot of drugs and everything. I am what you might call a natural biohacker. So what that means is without ingesting any form of stimulants, I do other things, like I said, in terms of process, like you said, in terms of habit, in terms of food, in terms of procedure. I change a few things, I tweak things up and down. I have a more of something and less of something else, and that hopefully enhances my capability to, yeah, like I said, be more valuable to everyone, or just personally perform. Like, I'm happy about that. So an example of that is stand in the sun a lot. Like you and I are taking this call, I'm standing outside in the sun. I could have taken this call in a room, but if you stand in the sun, especially morning sun, you get a lot of good vitamin D. You get a lot of good energy for the rest of the day. It's just proven. You smile more, you're happier more. People who live in environments where the sun shines a lot more are slightly, like, are more uplifted. And this is why, like, great weather cities tend to produce, just generally happier environments overall, right? But what's more important is you personally will feel more energetic if you take some morning sun in. It's really simple, which is why, like, we could go further back and say, oh, this is why you do the Surya Namaskar. This is why you wake up early in the morning. But the point is, just stand in the sun. Like, it's very easy to do. Take a call. I'm doing a call, right? Like, this is the hack. I have a call to take. I'm going to do it in the sun. I get sun. I get the call done. I'm done. That's a small example. Another one, you spoke about intermittent fasting. That's easy, right? Like, if you eat a lot of food, you're going to feel sleepy. That's just a function. That's so easy. So what do you change? Just change the amount of food, right? Don't eat so much before a big event, whether it's an interview, an exam, a meeting, a discussion, a thought process that you want to sit down for brainstorming. Your brain isn't going to be thinking about all that. It's going to be worried. Like, your body's just going to be functioning, digesting all that food. So it doesn't help. Eat after the event. Eat after you've gone through a big one, but fast, right? Like, whether that means skip a meal so you can have a better, performance for the meeting or the interview or the talk, or whether you eat later, it's all your choice. But intermittent fasting is a small change. So you're right. I have all these little nuggets. Take cold showers, right? Like, don't take hot showers. Huge benefits for taking cold showers. But I'll come to the end, sort of result that's worked for me. This doesn't work for everyone. My wife doesn't do all of this because she tried it, but didn't, like, her body's different, right? All our bodies are different. You have to find what works for you and delivers the best result. My end result has been, honestly, and people who work with me will tell you, I'm hyper energetic. I don't need too much sleep. I'm able to maintain my body weight. I'm able to keep up athletically with my 5-year-old son. You don't have to do much to run around with a 5-year-old son, but that's okay, right? Even a 5-year-old can be pretty fast sometimes, I think. So so as long as I can keep up with him, I think I'm doing something right. So there are a lot of benefits that come from these little changes or little hacks, if you call them. But I hope everyone tries something that helps them overall.
Any quick resources that they could get started with?
You should ask Varun for my list, everyone, because it's a public list. I emailed it to him, and you can take a look at it as well. Honestly, I don't want to name anyone because I don't want to endorse someone specific from my side, because I said things have worked for me. But I'll give you generic terms that you can Google. Or just get on YouTube, right, and type biohacking or hyper performance or hyper performing, and the results that pop up are the different authors and people that should be read and done, right? Like, for example, I don't want to advocate veganism because that movie came out, I forget the name now, but everyone saw it. Almost everyone who was quote unquote biohacking, I think, saw it.
Supercharged. I think Virat Kohli makes a cameo appearance in that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's called Supercharged. You can look it up. I honestly have forgotten the name of the movie. All I know is people started becoming vegan after that, but it didn't work for everyone, right? But you should watch it. You should watch that to understand how changing the food habits will be different, right? So I can throw some names like Dave Asprey or Mind Valley, which runs a lot of courses on biohacking. But the reality is, don't try what's working for me. What I want people to understand is, there are little things you can find out online just by typing things out and Googling them, and that will lend you to do your own research. I don't want anyone coming back to me and say, hey, I watched this Dave Asprey video and my eye stopped working because he suggested something and you tried something. But it is for everyone that at least they can do some research, right? But I'll thanks for that's a good question. So let me actually summarize it slightly nicer. There are 5 things we can all improve. So you should research this, and I guarantee you this is something and when I say you, I'm kind of talking to the listener, you may not have improved all 5. So try improving 5 things in your life, right? Number 1 is food. Maybe you're eating 3 meals, you only need 2 a day, maybe you need 1 a day. We don't know. Like, you got to try it to figure out what works for you, and you'll see a change, especially heavy meals before big events and stuff. I keep going back to that, right? But food is a big part. Sugar, right? Cut out sugar. So that's one. Breathing. If you don't do breathing exercises, you don't do yoga, you don't do meditation, I mean, listen to Naval, listen to Varun, listen to me, listen to people. Try it, right? May not work, but try it. But breathing. Three is exercise, but exercise isn't like, the whole, everyone says this, like all the experts tell you, doesn't mean do 60 minutes of it every day, right? Do 5, it's okay. Do 10, but do something, get your heartbeat going. Your heart needs to breathe, and exercise itself, right? A little bit. So like jump for a few minutes and that's good enough, but get into that, right? So, as I said, it's food, it's meditation, it's exercise. Then it gets into sleep. Everyone has different sleep habits. Find the hours you are most productive and utilize that for being productive. Some people are productive at night, some people are productive during the day, but find those hours and you'll do well. Just your sleep cycles have to be aligned with you performing well for yourself, right? So I work really well at night. It's super quiet. I also work fine during the day. So it's all dependent on, how it all plays out. And then the last piece is learning. We all learn. We're all reading every day. We're all picking up articles. But how do you learn the best? After all these experiments, I found out that audio is really good for me. So now I'm consuming almost 2 books, every week or every few weeks, because I'm just listening all the time. Like I have some audio playing of some book or some concept, and it's just getting ingested really well. If I read something, I don't learn it as well. And we've gotten trained into this certain way of life. We've gotten trained into eating 3 times a day, maybe more, maybe eating sugar. We've gotten trained into thinking yoga is just for Baba Ramdev and not for me. I'm a young, cool person, and it's not something I should pick up. Maybe, we got trained into exercise is hard. I got to do 60 minutes of jumping. No, you don't, right? We've gotten trained that, sleep, I need 8 hours. No, you don't. Maybe you need 9, or maybe you need 3. You won't know until you try. And finally, you've gotten trained into learning can only be done by reading a book, maybe watching a seminar. No, there's so many different ways of learning. You can hack your way into learning efficiently and effectively and increase your own experience. So these are sort of, that's what I'd like to suggest to the readers. Like, pick up on all these topics and then find the expert you'd like the best and follow them through.
Awesome. I think I've got the 5 points down, and I should focus on getting better at them. Except yoga has taken a backseat because of my knee issues. But I'm so glad I'm on the right track.
It's supposed to help with that. There's supposed to be yoga for all the different parts, right?
Of course, but of course, I just need to spend time to figure it out.
Yeah. I think the little things make a big difference. So I would suggest everyone try something small, like a cold shower makes a huge difference to the body, right? Try something like
that. No, this has been phenomenal. Before I close out, before Junglee, you've had a couple of startups as well, and I also read that you have successfully exited those. And those were successes in terms of what startup outcomes could look like. Between these 3 companies that you've held, since your full-time job, what has been your biggest life learning, and maybe one challenge that you kind of overcame?
Oof. Okay. Do you ask this question to everyone? No, I haven't heard you say.
Just successful people. Just successful people.
No. I think, okay, look, dude, success is relative. If I started a startup with $10,000 and I exited it with 20,000, that's success. All right. Or exit with like 11,000, let's say. So that's success. So I'll tell you, my definition of a successful exit wasn't that like I made billions or millions. I'm still working on the wealth part, perhaps, if you want to say that, or the money part. But you're right. The success was the learning. The success was the outcome, was net positive, versus what kind of went in. And that's something to celebrate, right? Like, no matter how much, whether it was 11,000 for 10,000 in, or whether it was 20,000 for 10,000 in, or whatever, right? So let's say the business learning and the personal learning, let's put both of them aside, right? Like, so the business learning is no one knows anything. Okay. No one knows anything. We all ascribe to each other, saying you're an expert at this. You did this, and I've seen you make money on this, and you've done so well. But I have learned and seen that even the best in the business, they don't know everything, or you could even say quote unquote anything. Basically what that boils down to is, if you have something you want to try, you try it. Don't listen because you don't want to be the one who's pointing fingers at the expert who told you not to do it, and it worked out for someone else. You have to respect everyone's opinion. That's fine, right? So let's use Naval, because you've ascribed to him in this podcast as an awesome person, which he is. And we're talking about him. So if Naval came to me and said, Rahul, this idea is not good, don't do it, I'm going to listen to him. Versus if my 5-year-old came to me and said, Dad, you got to try this, not that. But I'm very cognizant of the fact that people's understanding of what the future holds isn't entirely 100%. And if I really have a conviction about trying something, I may go against both my son and Naval. It doesn't matter, right? And Naval's kind of person who'll understand that too, right? Like he can give an opinion. So understand that sort of opinions aren't supposed to sway you from what you want to do, and go ahead and try it. You don't know what will succeed and what won't, right? So that's a very big piece. And even if I'm telling you not to do something, you have a business idea and I don't know if it will work, just do it. Like if you want to try it, you have to. This is how, if you go back to the origin stories of a lot of successful, as you say, successful people, you will see a lot of them who are told not to do. And when I say a lot, I'm making a generic statement, but most of them were told not to do what they did. Most of them were told this isn't going to work. Most of them said like, that's not how things happen. And yet they still tried, and guess what? They were like well ahead because they did it, right? So the business end of it is, and this is true for a feature in your product, this is true for a business angle, it's true for everything. Yes, you are risking the death of the business. You are risking, drowning what you haven't tried, killing what you already have. But the reality is, that's again going back to business, right? Like you want to generate high value, you have to try. So that's the business side of it. Personal side of it is, it's very hard. No one prepares you mentally. But here's the biggest thing I learned mentally, that everyone changes over time. Everyone changes, right? Like whether you're in a personal relationship with someone, whether you're in a business relationship with someone, what you were 5 years ago as a person, what they were 5 or 10 or 4 years ago as a person, everyone changes. So you think you'll have the same relationship with the person all the way through. It's not going to happen. People change. And now that you're aware of this, you are open to them changing. Because what happens is, even in the personal end and perhaps even in the business end, people aren't ready for others to change while they're changing themselves. And that creates strain in the relationship. That creates less empathy and understanding. But if you know already, I am changing, this person's changing, and we can still do this together, we still understand each other, we're going to try to take that forward, you will live a much more happier and fulfilled life. Like change is a good constant, right? So everyone changes. I'll give a funny anecdote to this, right? Like my parents never told me that in marriage you change, right? Like you get married to someone, you are not going to be the same person you were day one of marriage, whether it's 10 years later, 8, 9, whatever, right? Your habits are changing, their habits are changing. People don't think about it this way, right? People feel like, I'm marrying this person will be like this for the rest of their life, which is entirely untrue. And if you don't know this, you're shocked, right? Like you're just like, what happened to you? You used to be this, now you're this. When you realize yourself, you've changed. So change is something you should focus on and be aware of. Just be aware of it, live with it, live in that moment, and you'll live a far more understanding and a fulfilled life with your partner, whether it's both business or professional. So yeah, that's a big learning.
Thanks, Rahul. This is I think you've capped it off in a way that we've had over 50 guests on the show, and you're the 50th.
Nice.
And I'm glad I've changed from the first one, and I'm glad I could have you on for the 50th, and to cap off half a century, and we'll probably get you back for the 100th.
I would love to. I was hoping for that number too.
Soon it shall happen. I should make it happen. Are you investing? Are you hiring a Junglee? Any shout outs you want to make?
The only Junglee shout out I'd love to make for is absolutely Junglee that we are hiring. Please check out our homepage, jungleegames.com. You will see the grow section, which is our career section, and all the roles that we're there. We're looking for gaming's a great industry, right? So it's growing during a pandemic. It's unfortunate there's one, but hey, we're growing. It's a big industry right now. We're looking for a lot of great people, technical, non-technical. And anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You'll learn that about me as well. I talk to everyone. Feel free to reach out and tell me you're interested, and we could quickly look at your profile and see if there's a fit. But thank you for allowing me to give that shout out, Varun.
I can attest that you do talk to everybody, and I'm glad to have been able to do that and forge this relationship over the last many years. Awesome to have you on.
Oh, awesome, man. I really appreciate you making me a part of this. Love it.